Everybody, wait a minute. I mix what I like, what I like. I mix what I like is exactly where you want and need to be. I mix what I like, organic, vegan, soul food from your immediate diet. Live healthy. I mix what I like, what I like.
We're here on I Mix What I Like. You may check us out on imixwhatilike.org, where you can see all these other shows and what my daddy likes and other cool things.
All right, what's up, world? Welcome back to I Mix What I Like. Again, I'm Jared Ball, happy to be your host. Please do come on in, like, share, subscribe, support the Patreon, join for free even, just to make sure that you get all the latest and all the other things that sometimes won't go here. And make sure you have the bell rung. Do all the things. Put this in your socials, invite others to join you, and welcome. So it's my fault. I was late in sending the link to our guest. So he's on his way. Good to see folks in the chat. Welcome. Millennials are killing capitalism and all journalism. Good to see folks. Yeah, Brittany, welcome. And by the way, folks, we'll be back live again at 4:00 with the football roundtable crew. So a busy day, and so if you got some time, you can hang out all day. And make sure, if you haven't seen it, you check out Saturdays with Renee and the great discussion on dialectics yesterday, led by Alchemy. And then I have a little bit of a small trip tomorrow, so I will be using some of that to catch up with Millennials Are Killing Capitalism. There's been a couple of these Imperial 80s that I've had to miss just because. Jimmy Kirby, my man. Oh man, long time no see. I'm assuming this is the same one. Glad you out there doing relatively well in Carson City. Good to see you again. That's what's up. And yeah, and at some point I'm gonna have one thing about the Patreon that I will be using it for is oof. Gotta have a little. I gotta share a little bit about a little mishap I had made yesterday, and a little RSO mishap, and one I've never had before. So I'll come back to that one. There was a first time experience for sure, but it was I wasn't ready. So we'll have a little lessons learned. Um, I got a bunch of buying power stuff has been building up. I didn't have I thought about doing a live last night, but not only was I not able to do that, but I missed another legendary tribute to D'Angelo, comrades at WPFW up the road in Washington D.C. DJ RBI in particular. A couple double O Africans were out last night, and I completely blew it with my little RSO mishap. So, um, but and yeah, still kind of recovering a little bit from that. I can tell. I can still see I'm not 100%. All right, and oh man, I'm looking at the video from that I missed. Am I able to? Oh man, you know what? Can I ah maybe another time I'll come back to that. RSO Yipper, RSO. And I'm just gonna leave it. No, it's not that. It's not real shit offline. Woo, if you know, you know. If you don't, you just gonna have to hold on. And we'll talk about that another time. I don't wanna sully this good live stream and our that will involve our forthcoming guest in a moment. I don't want to. Let's see if I save this here, and then let's see. I bet I could show this here. Let's see, local video downloads. The legendary DJ RBI. AKA Hands of God. Yeah, DJ RBI, man. It was an honor to get to work with him and some others over there, WPFW, Decipher Hip Hop Collective, and other and throughout the other iterations of mine, and others' work there. And I was all set to be there. I'd have been right there in the room, but yo, everything is wonderful, in moderation. But if you ignore the instructions and don't leave your ego at the door, you know what I'm saying? It becomes an issue. So All right, so our guest is here. So let me stop standing on ceremony and welcome to the stage, back to the platform, Carlos, aka Deculturation. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you again. How you feeling?
Great, great. Thank you so much for having me on again. Like, truly appreciate you. I just can I make one clarification before we start?
Oh
Just
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of like a matter of respect. I let you know that I'm always going to call you Dr. Ball. Like that is what it is. You've called me the streaming goat, which I'm not going to argue against. I'm not going to argue against. But if I could just request, maybe even demand that moving forward, I'm uncomfortable with the GOAT, but I will take the Master Chief of streaming. Is that all right? Is that
Oh wow.
what is
Okay.
going on?
Master Chief of Streaming. So I appreciate you for paying attention and and
Always.
and having a good sense of humor. Uh but yeah, absolutely. The Master Chief of Streaming, no problem. Um
Can't
uh
sorry. I'm going to continue. One last interruption. I hope that we could just briefly, because of your experience in the military, the Navy, if we could squeeze in something about Grand Platinum, I'd be so grateful. And that's kind of why I made the joke to begin with. But you're
so
in
you
charge.
can update me and us, and we can absolutely do that. The only somewhat uh um I might have to be out of here around 2 o'clock my time, so it's a little about 2 hours. Because I know you have you know, but I do have to do a couple of things, and but so we can definitely get to whatever. I don't imagine that what I had initially wanted us to talk about would take that long. So I kind of figured we would have some room to move into other things, and I hope we do. Um, but first of all, before we do that, let me borrow from Renee and how she hosts on Saturdays with Renee, and just invite you, for those who are not aware, to say one or two things else about yourself. I've already put a link to the video in question in the show description, and a link to your channel in the show description. So if folks are not already subscribed to Deculturation, please do. And speaking of things I need to catch up to, there's a couple of streams here and there and videos here that I think I need to catch up to as well. But yeah, so if you would just say a word or two about who you are.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's not much to say. I don't really brag about myself like that. I I always feel like I'm not doing enough. I started streaming because I noticed the rise of the normalization of liberal Zionism, and I wasn't seeing anybody call it out. And I was like, all right, I got a big mouth. Let's go ahead and run it. FD put me on, so grateful for him. Reached out, saw me running my mouth, and he's like, let's talk about it. And yeah, since then, the channel's been growing. I'm grateful for it. The one thing that I do want to emphasize is I'm currently not involved in a political party, which is unsettling. So I'm trying to fix that, but I am the co-chair of the political education committee of my union, which has been very informative, especially being out here in the LA area. And I always say, man, we're not doing enough. We're not doing enough. We're very far behind. And I do believe that we all have an obligation. And I'm not just here to sit on my ass and run my mouth. So, I mean, I'm grateful to do it. Don't get me wrong. I'm grateful to do it and that people are tuning in. But really, it's about encouraging each other to get out there and get it done because it's too easy to pat yourself in the back.
Okay, right on. I appreciate that. So listen, so you know, you mentioned that you had been on this Jubilee surrounded platform, and again, the link to the episode is in the show description. I've watched your part a couple times now, and some of the rest of it a couple times, and in my small circles, there's an ongoing, and I know it's not just there, but there's this ongoing conversation around to what extent do we engage various platforms. And you mentioned him already, and even if within one of my circles, FD came up in particular, and he knows about this, so it's not. And where he reached out to someone that I know and invited them to be in a video, and they said no because they felt uncomfortable with the direction that he goes politically, so they didn't want to be in the video. And I'm not quite there. And you know, and in fact, as I'll joke in a minute, I told him in this last one he put me in, I had, you know, at one point in a previous version of it, I had like an issue. I was like, oh my God, my, you know, that's why I was like, that's why my comrade said to you what he said, because he was like, but um but I have my own reasons for why I disagree with this particular comrade, but not I don't mind that they've made that decision. I just in this case don't agree. And then, but I have a variety of reasons for that. But I am wondering. So then, when I saw that you were on this Jubilee surrounded thing, I got curious, you know. And so on the one hand, I do want you to say a word or two about your decision making, and then I have a few questions about the mechanics of it, like some of the how it actually, you know, the process. I am curious about some of that. But in general, how do you make your decisions about with whom you will engage? How far to your right will you go in a public conversation, and so on? And then ultimately, what made you decide to sit down on this one?
Well, I think I can speak for both of us when I say that we're just looking for attention and we're just looking for more clicks and more views. No, 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 no. I mean, the first call I made when I heard about this was um, to somebody that I begrudgingly call a mentor, only because, yeah, I've known him so long, and he was a professor of mine initially, and then we just, after graduating from community college, just continued having like a great friendship. And he's Palestinian, and he always takes time in his courses to educate us on all his students, regardless of the subject, on Palestine. And so I was very fortunate to be aware about their struggle early on, which is eventually what led me to get frustrated with the normalization of liberal Zionism. There's Midnight Books out here. They've been moving around a lot, and is run by this guy named Gabe. It's dealt with a lot of harassment from the Chicano nationalist community, has had to find new places and locations to set up shop because he's always sticking his neck out for others. And he hit me up and he's like, hey, Jubilee reached out and they're looking for people. And he knows I'm a loudmouth. So he's like, would you be interested? And that's when I hit up my Palestinian homie. And I was like, hey, I'm not sure about this because Jubilee is Jubilee, right? What are we doing here? What's the point of this? And he told me, he's like, do it because I don't think anyone's going to approach it the way that you approach things. So I was like, all right. And it was, man, I was so stressed out during that time. Like I was breaking out. I wasn't sleeping well because I was trying to study as much as possible, because I did feel that burden of like, if I'm going to do this and be in the circus, then I got to perform like exceptionally well, because I'm not there for myself really. And that's how I rationalize it. Now, in terms of, and again, all respect to FD, but yeah, I mean, if you have no control in the political direction that something's going to get broken down or edited to, then you really have to make sure that everything you say can't be chopped off or watered down in any way. And I do have a little bit of regret of what I ended up saying, because I assumed I was going to have another chance to speak. So I kind of held back a little bit because it was different topics. And so I'm like, well, this isn't the topic that I want to like cover, but it was the first question asked and nobody was stepping up. Nobody was stepping up. And I've always had the reputation of just being a loudmouth. So I was like, all right, I'll do it. I'll go first, which I'm grateful for because it set the tone for the rest of the interactions to view this individual as a comprador, as a hostile character. But I didn't get the chance to talk about what I was really interested in, which was armed struggle, at least not to the degree that I wanted to. I'm not sure if I answered your question though.
No, I think you did. And then so I'm not sure, but I was wondering if you thought what you think? Could we get away with playing your how do
I
you
mean,
what do you
I'm not sure. I mean, it's Jubilee. You might be able to. Others have gotten away with it. We might have to
Yeah,
pause it here and
let's
there. Yeah.
yeah, let me because you I would like for folks, if they haven't already, to see. So this is already linked in the show description, and we're this is the episode we're talking about. Ahmed Fuad Al Khatib, if I'm saying that correctly. I had never heard of him before, but
I do not agree that we should.
let me see if I could just because you're right up at the beginning here. So let me just all right.
Yeah.
And then so like all right, so here we go.
In the Palestinian people's history.
All right, hold on. Let me make sure we see that there. So his first claim was October 7th was an abhorrent disaster that unleashed the worst catastrophe in the Palestinian people's history. And then you said, so when you saw this come up, nobody was reacting fast enough. And yeah, so because like in the video, I don't know if we get a good sense of that. So what does that look like off air?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge editing process. And so what he's saying here, this claim, he has to do that and redo it to make sure that it's, satisfactory for the director. So it's not the first time he says it. And in that time, we hear the question and nobody was stepping up to it.
Mm.
And that's when I decided to do something. But to say something, I should say. But the thing is that the questions that they send us, like the day before this recording, aren't the exact same questions. They're slightly reworded. And that was a little frustrating for me. I did ask them to repeat the initial question because I was like, well, that's not what I was preparing for. But I mean, it was essentially the same premise. And then we could get it down into why this question is abhorrent in itself, which the reason why I was upset that they didn't give us the actual questions is because I wasn't able to break down the question itself. Not how I'm going to answer it, but why is this question being asked in this manner? Right. And so it's a little bit more on your feet than I was expecting, to be honest.
So that was actually because we'll come back to that point, which is because I was actually I as I said to you beforehand I walked away from my initial viewing more impressed by you and others' performances than I was angry at the whole thing, which was a little bit of a surprise to me because initially the whole thing is just irritating. The whole question of the genocide being debated, all the stuff you and others bring up in the discussion is really important. But I admit I was impressed. But again, so the night before, so let me just back up real quick just to make sure I got clear. So once your professor turned friend comrade suggested you join this, he had been reached out to by Jubilee, is what you were saying.
No, so the gentleman
sorry,
right behind Ahmed over here, the Comprador, is part of the Peace and Freedom Party, and to his left is somebody that I've known for quite a while at this point, who runs Midnight Books. If you're ever in the LA area, check it out.
Right, I got you. Okay,
right, and they reach out to the Peace and Party, Jubilee did, to ask them if they were willing to participate in this, and he reached out to me because he needed more people. I reached out to my Palestinian mentor. I hate calling him that, but it's accurate. The man's got an ego. Let's put it that way. So I reached out to him and he basically gave me the green light. He's like, yeah, do it, do it right. Because I mean, we shouldn't be debating this, but I will say that I think there should be an exception made for compradors like this, for those willing to sell out their own people. And well, I don't want to spoil it, but like he literally uses his dead family members to defend the Zionist entity.
Oh, no question. No, he's oh man, he's got a lot to work out in his trauma, his colonized trauma, whatever you want to call it. But I don't appreciate this here, El Contrador, the Colonial, that he looks like all bald head, light skinned dudes with beards don't look alike and glad. Like I don't appreciate that.
You know what?
That's messed up. Don't pile on. Don't add.
Wait. I think this is a compliment.
The evil jab. This is messed up. That's messed up. A compliment.
I think before, before you got your, things to get a little together health wise, I think you make the argument a little bit better. But I think now it's not remotely close. I think we do some throwback photos, maybe.
Oh wow, that's messed up. Chubby jab, chubby JB. That's messed up. Shame on all of you. And then look at the better Jared is chiming in. Shame on all of you. Shame on everybody. All right. Okay. All right. So once you've agreed, did they vet you? My bad. I should have done this. I don't know. But so you agreed, and then is there like a vetting and a meeting, or is there or some email exchange? How did they know to agree that you would be part of the 20?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's like any other casting where Zoom meeting, and you kind of do a mock run,
like a pre-interview type thing.
Yeah, okay. Pre-interview thing to make sure that you're actually somewhat aware of what you're talking about. The issue that I had is that I understand a lot of people wanting to like just bring all the facts and just dump it out there. The problem that I was having is that not only was I confident that others would be doing that, people don't really care about that. The people that tune in to watch Jubilee do not care about that really, right? I mean, they get like millions of views on this. What they care about is, unfortunately, making somebody look like an idiot, making somebody stutter, which I'm sure I did a few times. But that's the aspect that I was trying to bring to the table, where it's like I wanted to bring more of the emotional, more of the aggression, more of putting this guy on his heels, rather than debating what happened on this date or this year. Because fundamentally, like we've been saying, it shouldn't be debated. These are European colonizers, and that's the end of the conversation. What muddies the waters is that instead of using Catholicism or being Protestant, they're using the shield of Judaism, right? So that's what makes it a little bit like tricky. But at the end of the day, these are just Europeans doing colonization. And I mentioned this before, and I don't say it to be sympathetic to them, but to highlight this, that it is a white supremacist project, is the fact that they're doing forced sterilization on African Jews who are also colonizers themselves, but are willing to take, that second, or who knows where they land in the rung, but above Palestinians, in order to, find some type of like safety and security. But at the end of the day, they're just there for fodder.
So then once they've selected you, you said you get sent questions, but only the night before.
Yeah, there's kind of like a rough outline of what the topic's going to be. Like I said, more or less the questions were what we were sent, but the wording is changed up a little bit, which is, I mean, I'm sure you can attest to this. It's a huge factor, and it's done on purpose.
No, yeah, that's why I'm glad we're walking through this a little bit. And then you said one of the questions was about armed struggle, and that was the one you would hope to get to. But
yeah, that was later on.
Yeah, okay.
That's towards the end of the video, and that's the one I wanted to really participate in.
But I'm saying in the question sent the night before, that was a topic area that was raised, so you knew going into the day of taping, that this was something you would hope to be.
Yeah, that's the one I wanted
first to the table for. Right. Okay. And then lastly on that, the video says it was posted 4 months ago. So when was it actually taped? Was it just?
Well, it was delayed because of the incident at Washington, D.C. Right? So it was going to come out and it was going to have a different title. Right? It was going to have a different title. And then that happened and they let us know, hey, it's not going to come out when we said it would. And they switched some things up. Which to me, like, honestly, I was a little annoyed because I'm like, it's going to get more views then. Like, you guys have, come on, like, let's stop pretending that there's any integrity involved in producing this type of media.
Okay. Yeah. All right. All right, let me start it here. Here we go.
Unleashed the worst catastrophe in the Palestinian people's history.
And again, he's saying Hamas, which is.
Hi, my name is Ahmed.
So, worst.
So you and you know what? I didn't catch that the first two times. You didn't shake his hand. That was slick.
I already got enough blood in my hands from just
Yeah.
being idle by. You know, we all do.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get more of. And he's got his own family members' blood on his hands. You know what I mean? And I got a lot of pushback in the comment sections apparently over that. I just checked them once just because.
Really?
Eddie, and I saw it, and people were saying as soon as he didn't shake his hand, I knew this guy was like not worth my time or something like that. And I'm like, good, I wasn't gonna reach you anyways. Like I don't.
Yeah.
That wasn't my approach.
Actually, I commend that because it's difficult not to respond to the gesture. I find like, and I've a couple times shaken a hand. I wish I didn't, just because you see the hand go out, it's like a natural response. And by the time I thought about it, it was too late, and I was like, damn. But okay, all right. But yeah, so I think you're right for that. All right, here we go.
Catastrophe. I think that you're using specific words for specific reasons. The Nakba, catastrophe, right? I want to offer my condolences. I believe that 33 members of your family were exterminated by the Zionist entity. So my question is, how is this worse than what initiated everything, which was the Nakba in 1948?
My grandparents were pushed out in 1948, where 700,000 Palestinians were unfortunately forced to leave their homes, and in some cases had no choice but to leave their homes. Since October 7th, over 2.1 million Palestinian people have had to leave their homes due to the catastrophe that Hamas's actions unleashed by attacking Israeli communities on October 7th. Quantitatively and qualitatively, Hamas's actions have triggered one of the worst catastrophes in the Palestinian people's history, whereby 50,000 Palestinians would still be alive had Hamas simply kept its soldiers at home on October 7th.
Right. So,
including family members of my.
All right, so we're gonna I'm gonna play Carlos's response in a second, but so like just on some of the logistics. Had you all interacted at all, like in a green room situation before the like what is the setup like? You don't see him until you all walk out into that staging area?
yeah, we didn't know who it was until the day of.
Oh, you didn't even. Wait, but how had you looked up all his? Wait, what do you mean you didn't know who it was? I thought.
No, we didn't know who it was. They didn't specify his name, and so immediately, and I assumed everybody else there, or at least the people actually there, you know, that cared about the topic, because some of the people, anywho, they have recurring characters. I'll put it that way. So we all started doing. I'm assuming we all started doing research, because when I found out, I assumed it was him. I immediately started looking for a Palestinian that is a sellout. And I was like, who are the vendidos? Who are we looking at? And so I started, doing that research, and he was one of the more popular ones because around this time, or a little bit like a few weeks before it, a video blew up online where it was a Palestinian and a Zionist sharing a table together, and they had both the Palestinian flag and the Zionist flag. And they were debating pro-Palestinian people that were against so-called like two-state solution. I think he calls it like a two-nation solution. He just loves rewording things and playing with language like that. So I had a good feeling that it was him, because there are other characters, but they're a little too erratic for this type of setup, right? And so sure enough, at one point, everyone's just hanging out, and he has to use the bathroom, and he has security with him, and I got a shine. I saw the shine off top of his dome, and I was like, oh, it's him. And I immediately started going around and telling other people there, like, hey, it is this guy. And a lot of them knew, and I didn't know these individuals, most of them. A lot of them knew. It's like, oh yeah, I thought it would be. So I was like, all right, dope. I hope they did the research on him that I did. And unfortunately, I don't think I used well enough in this conversation. I did start off with it. I caught myself, and I wanted to give the condolences, not necessarily to him, but acknowledging his family before he started weaponizing them.
Right. Okay. All right, thanks.
My own.
So, by that logic, if Zionists wouldn't have colonized Palestine, then none of this would have began to begin with, right?
As a Palestinian who grew up in the Gaza Strip, what I can tell you is that
Who put you there?
the Gaza
Who
Strip
put you there?
had immense potential to be the pride and joy of the Palestinian people, to prove that we are absolutely capable of having a functional state of our own that can rebuild our society, rebuild our heritage, reclaim our presence on the land.
The entirety of the land, or just because I believe your parents were in a refugee camp, right? They were forced into that.
There are nuances and complexities in
Well, who
history.
put them there?
Nuances and complexities.
But that's a very objective thing.
In
Who put
history
them there?
that unfortunately
Zionists, right?
you unfortunately are not willing to listen to some of the nuances and the complexities. Do you know, for example,
Well, just answer that. Like
1948, the Arab armies that were coming in to supposedly save the Palestinian people asked
From whom?
Palestinians
From whom?
asked
From the
Palestinians
Zionists,
to leave.
occupiers. Yeah.
Asked Palestinians to leave, disarmed Palestinians, and said, "Oh, this is a matter of 2 to 3 days."
So we agree that they should have been armed.
That's not my point. My point
You
is
said they did. So.
That's my favorite part of your segment. I thought that was particularly well done, that you got him on that. Because I heard it as it was happening, and I was like, but that was slick. Another point of logistics. So when people see the flag, like, so the one flag we see on the screen is a representation of how many flags are raised in the background, and then how does that work exactly? How many flags go up before you have to give up your seat?
I think it just has to be like a majority. I'm not sure the actual number.
Okay.
But I hadn't noticed this before because I've only seen this once because it makes me uncomfortable because I'm really frustrated with myself. Yeah. So I didn't notice that the one individual that raised it first, or it seems like first, and this is kind of jumping ahead, at the end, the speaker or the main, I don't know what they call him, like protagonist or something, gets to choose who they speak to. And he had such a difficult time with almost everyone that he didn't know who to pick. And it got to the point that he asked the projection team, "Can I pick someone who I haven't spoken to yet?" That's how desperate he was not to talk to us again. And when that was occurring, again, me being a loudmouth, I'm like, "No, you're only debating." Shoot, and I literally just lost her name. We'll see her shortly, or I'll pull up her name right now. But I said you're only debating her because she really did have all the facts. She was doing organizing in terms of the encampments on her college campus, like just exceptional individual, right? And he was afraid to debate her again. And to be honest, even the aesthetics of it all, in terms of her wearing a hijab, I think were really important, the visuals of it. And he was like really, really dodging her. And I managed to rile people up enough to where everyone said, "We're not going up. She's the only one you're going to be able to speak to. Nobody else is going up." And I thought we had like a collective understanding of this. And that Wedo right there that raised his flag first, which I hadn't realized before, was the one to speak up and say like, "Oh no, I think he should debate the other person from Gaza," who was a little bit more on that respectable angle. And that gave him the out to speak to somebody who he could basically kind of like control the narrative a little bit better than he did with Homegirl. Let me find her name. My apologies.
And folks, I see several folks are reporting, and I see there's an issue with the stream. I'm not sure what is going on. I've put, because there's nothing over here. But what I'm probably going to end up doing is at some point I'll create a clip out of this, and I will likely just re-edit it and put the video itself back in so folks can get the natural video in the repost later. So if folks are here live, we're only going to play a few more minutes of this video because we're only going to play Carlos's segment and talk our way through it, and then we're going to move on, and then I'll likely re-edit and repost this segment with the corrected video later on. So I appreciate folks sticking with us, and hopefully it stays better now. But like I said, we'll thank you. I'm not, because over here I'm not even seeing any errors, so it just, that sucks. But anyway, so apologies everybody, but like I said, stick around, don't hang with us, and we'll get a corrected version up later on at some point. But yeah, anyway, go ahead. Did you find the name?
I have their I have their Instagram handle, but I'm not sure if they would be comfortable. It's public of me saying it out loud though. It is Savage Sum on Instagram. That's Savage SUMM, and yeah, their account is public. But yeah, she does a lot of work on her campus and really brought the energy, which I think was most important, unfortunately, and the facts and the experience of actually organizing, because the encampments were a big part of the conversation moving forward.
Okay, right on. All right, just a couple more minutes here.
Armed them as if it's a negative thing, right?
The history of the Nakba itself is so singularly focused on what happened from the point of view of Zionism and
the colonizers, right?
Whereas I actually want to understand what happened with the Arab failures that have
the failures to stop Zionism, right?
Why wasn't
From colonizing
Palestine
Palestine,
state? Right? Why wasn't a Palestinian state established between 1948 and 1967?
Because the British were in control of the region, and we know for a fact that the Palestinian revolt was in opposition to the British, right? So when people talk about, we've been opposing colonization from...
So it says here, the fact check, Britain controlled modern day Israel, Palestine, and Jordan from 1918 until 1948. By the way, when you see this fact check on that point, does this...
No, they add that in later. But they really do encourage you to throw in as many facts and dates as possible. I think it's probably in relation to some type of, I'm assuming just financial reason. I mean, they have a barcode on there, so who knows? So,
maybe
but yeah, they encourage you to throw facts out so they can use it.
Right, and maybe to seem somewhat responsible in the work that they're doing here. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I see folks in the chat making the point. I mean, so in other words, by that logic, everywhere in the world was just failing to live up to its proper use of its land and resources, and was waiting for Europeans to show up and improve their conditions and their state of being. Right? I mean, that's what he's essentially saying. Why didn't the Palestinians make Palestine into this utopia before there was an Israel? In which case, what? Then Israel wouldn't. Then they wouldn't have. They designed this project would have stopped. Is that part of the argument? Like they'd have been like, oh no, they've done too much good work here. Let's set up Israel somewhere else, or where they have just demolished whatever was there anyway.
But well, I mean, colonizers are known to admire and respect advanced civilizations, even if they don't understand them. So I think he it's just so annoying because I wish I would have acknowledged more of his tactics. One of them is he uses this whole thing about the bigotry of low expectations, right? And he uses it to talk about the fact that Gaza hasn't become the shining lighthouse on the hill of Palestine, that to assume that Palestinians would resist violently is a low expectation, right? When in reality, it's to resist, to engage in armed struggle is the bravest thing you could do, because you're literally putting your life on the line. You're putting yourself out there directly at risk. When we look at like Sinwar, the big Zionist propaganda against him was, oh, he's hiding, and they were depicting him like a rat. I get emotional just thinking about like he literally, in his last breath, was fighting back. How is that a low expectation? That is the highest. That's the pinnacle of the human spirit. There's nothing more impressive, inspirational than that in itself. That's it. To give your life for your people, to give your life for freedom, to resist. And he was in the front lines when he didn't have to be, if we're being honest. He didn't have to be. And we could even make the argument that maybe he shouldn't have. But he was out there. But that's one of the things that I wish I would have addressed more, that goes in line with this narrative of being essentially like, instead of the model minority, of being the model colonized people. That's what he's advocating for.
Yeah.
For 75 years since the Nakba. Add another 30 for British colonization of the region. Is that incorrect?
Between 1948 and 1967.
Is it incorrect that the British
who was in
colonized the
charge
region?
between 1948
Is
and
that incorrect?
1967?
You haven't answered a single one of my questions. I asked, who put your parents in Gaza? And you were unwilling to answer that. Can you at least answer me that? Who put your parents in Gaza?
Between 1948
You're
and
not gonna
67 and 1967.
You've dodged every one of my questions.
It's not dodging so much.
So just it's a very simple question. Who put your parents in a refugee camp?
On my mom's side, the Arab invading armies asked the invading armies to liberate the Palestinian people.
Why were they invading?
To supposedly stop the Zionist invasion.
From doing what?
From taking over the Palestinian people's lands in the areas that later on became Israel.
Okay, and you're okay with that?
I'm not okay with that.
Okay, so we should liberate that land.
80 years later, Israel is a recognized state that exists, that is recognized by the entirety of the international community. And this illusion that armed resistance is going to get rid of 7 million Jewish Israelis, 7 million.
We're talking getting rid of the Zionist occupation, the Zionist entity itself, right? The colonial forces.
So do you believe that there should be a space for the Jewish people?
There always have been. What we're opposition to is, or opposing, I should say, is the Zionist entity itself. Why do Europeans have the right to colonize and impose a government on Palestinians? Why?
Well, I would say that we should ask that to the King of Jordan at the time.
He's not here, unfortunately.
At the time, we should ask the Arab armies that came to liberate the Palestinian people.
Why didn't they defeat the Zionists?
And ended up facilitating part of the Nakba by asking folks, my mom...
So you're blaming the Nakba on the Arab countries?
I'm blaming the failures of the Arabs and of the Palestinian leadership at the time in acting in the best interest of the Palestinian people, and then looking at 1948 to 1967, why wasn't a Palestinian state established? Why wasn't it until 1964 that at the Arab League summit that the decision was made to create the Palestinian Liberation?
So their fact check says the Arab League created the Palestinian Liberation Organization in 1964 to unify Palestinian groups. But he's saying that none of the Arab groups up until 1948 had solidified themselves into any kind of meaningful state. Am I following this correctly? Is that
no? He was saying a little bit later than that. But this is why I didn't. This is why, if it seemed like I was dodging his question, the initial one, I kind of was. Like, I'll own up to that, because I didn't want. That wasn't what I was there for. To get into the semantics of, well, this year and this Congress, this. That is a tactic that they use in order to make it more complicated than what it really is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was dodging that. I can admit that. I was dodging that because I was not interested in having that type of conversation. I was looking to get to the root of it. And to try and disarm his ability to use his family, his 33 and probably now more victims of a Zionist-led genocide. That was my role there, or at least that's what I saw my role to be, is to disarm him as much as possible so that he couldn't use those weapons, that he couldn't weaponize his dead family members against the rest of the people. Because too often people are respectful of just that alone at face value, not realizing it, that this guy's literally like pimping out the corpses of his family members because he's living well. And we get into the NGOs that he's involved in for quite some time now. So, but yeah.
So yeah, and my bad, I'm tripping. He was actually saying, so from 1948, he's saying to 67 Arabs had not done, Palestinians had not done, and I admit I'm just clearly not I'm too novice at these arguments because I'm thinking I don't remember ever hearing that line of argument from anyone. Because what conditions would have allowed Palestinians to do that between 48 and 67? What the hell is he even talking about? He seems to suggest after Israel was officially declared or whatever, that Palestinians had somehow more authority and autonomy to develop a Palestinian liberated state and failed to do. And then in 19 years, they're supposed to emerge this fantastical civilization. I mean, he is wild. That's wild. Okay.
Yeah, and it doesn't make sense to engage in it in that moment because you have limited time. In fact, I didn't know how much time I had. I think I might have had some of the most speaking time for the person for just going up once, because I think everybody was a little bit like nervous to go up, and also kind of like, again, I don't know if it comes up in the video, but like the energy in the room immediately went up as soon as we started talking. I think as soon as I mentioned his family members, things got really uncomfortable immediately. So, because I don't think anybody was expecting me to go up there and like immediately like disarm him like that. And I let him know immediately, I know who you are. I know what you're about. I know, your talking points.
Well, as soon as you didn't shake hands, it was on. It was clear. But that's
true. Yeah. True. Yeah.
Organization and to push for Palestinian statehood. Why was Jordan allowed to annex the West Bank and Egypt annex the Gaza Strip?
To be very clear, I'm against that, but that's a regional conflict, right? That's a regional. What I'm opposed to is Europeans thinking they could colonize Palestine.
Do you know that half of Jewish Israelis?
Right? Do you know I'm not talking about. No, I'm talking about the originators of the Zionist project. Can we agree that they were Europeans?
Not entirely, no.
The majority?
Not entirely.
There were majority secular Jews.
There were certainly some elements of the Zionist movement that certainly emerged out of Europe. But I'm saying right now.
So it says here, the first political Zionist meeting was held in Switzerland. The movement's headquarters later moved from Austria to Germany. It aimed to establish a Jewish homeland in Palestine due to rising anti-Semitism. So just so folks can see what's on this if they can't see.
Now, I am thinking about the future. I am thinking about Gaza. What happened in Gaza on October 7th was not because of Zionism.
What happened in Gaza on October 7th?
What happened with the attack that Hamas launched as a terrorist organization. You have taken an entirely different approach to thinking about October 7th. You have eaten up the Hamas propaganda that says October 7th happened because of Zionism.
And you're eating up the Zionist propaganda, right? Because I don't ever hear you bringing up, and I've seen many of your interviews, I don't see you ever bringing up the IOF, if you want to call them the IDF, the Hasenga, where they came from, right? They started as a terrorist militia, did they not? Were they not killing British soldiers? How is that irrelevant?
How is that irrelevant? The Israeli Defense Forces originally formed from the Haganah and its military branch, the Palmach, to resist Nazi forces. After World War II, they operated underground, taking actions Israelis consider resistance and Arabs consider terrorism. Not just Arabs, by the way, but...
So where they came from, and they continue to impose that upon the Palestinian population. I ask you, why is it that in the West Bank, there's nobody stopping all the colonization that's still occurring?
Are you Palestinian?
I'm Mexican.
Have you lived in the Gaza Strip?
No, when you were run out, right? When you aligned yourself with What was that organization you're involved with? Ah, man. Because
What?
I know you work for the Atlantic Council right now, right?
Do you know anything about my history?
Yes, I do.
So tell me,
Your
what is my
parents
history?
were forced into Gaza, were they not? They grew up in a refugee camp, were they not?
Do you know anything about Hamas and how it treats Palestinians in the Gaza Strip? Do you know anything?
Not worse than Israelis and Zionists treat them.
Do you know that in the past 2 days,
So we agree.
Hamas executed dozens of Palestinians who were hungry, who were desperate, as Hamas was looting.
Dozens of Palestinians. Meanwhile, the Zionist entity exterminated 33 of your family members.
Pause. You've been voted out by the majority. Please.
All right. So folks, I'm going to leave the link in the show description again for you to watch the entire thing. If you like. Unfortunately, Carlos doesn't make a return really until that you see that little postscript interview that they give where you know, they show you saying something about you would have liked you would love, I think something about settler colonialism you would have liked to be able to talk more about or something like that. But
Shoot.
but yeah, as folks I've seen a couple in the chat have noticed, it's he played the so was that part of his plan to just tell everyone except for the handful of potential Muslims, Arabs, or Palestinians who might be there that if you know, did you grow up have you been to Gaza? Do you know, are you Palestinian? But yeah, so say anything else that you would want to, but then I know you wanted to talk some about the organizations that you know him to be connected to. But yeah, I actually agree with Sudeep. Shout out to Sudeep. I think you did a great job. I thought everyone, save for maybe one or two, I thought did a very good job. And I think because the context seems damn near impossible. But I thought it was I don't know, it was less of a tragedy of a discussion than I would have thought initially going in. But yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I was also like impressed by everybody. So, all right. I wasn't impressed with myself, not because I'm like looking for praise or anything like that. I appreciate it. Thank you. It's just that I know what I'm capable of, and the moment did get to me. You know, being in front of the cameras, I didn't realize how emotional I was going to get in terms of like, I'm a very emotional person. I can admit that, but I got like heated. Like you're talking about not shaking his hand. That's not where my mind went to. You know what I mean? So like I stumbled. I think I instead of saying like the actual name of the terrorist group, it's a terrorist group. I'm glad that at least the fact check, even though it was watered down, at least mentioned that they were recognized as a terrorist organization. I said their name wrong. I could have mentioned a lot more terrorist organizations that came together to form the IOF. Things like that I wish I would have done differently, that I would have been more aggressive, to be honest. My homie Soli was on there and he steamrolls him, right? Like that wasn't a conversation. Soli went up there and just steamrolled him. And shout out to his band, Weapons of Mass Creation. Good, solid music. Check it out. But, you know, finding that balance in the moment was difficult. What I will say is the whole "are you Palestinian" angle. I think he thought he was going to be able to use that a lot more. And they struggled to find non-Palestinian people, enough non-Palestinians, because there's a good amount of them. In fact, Soli's the one that pointed out to me, because I didn't make it to the end of the video. I couldn't, like, I only watched like a couple minutes of myself, and I was like, nah. As soon as I made that mistake of mispronouncing the name of that Zionist terrorist group, I tapped out and I stopped watching. So I didn't make it to the end. I didn't realize they actually did use that footage. Soli pointed out to me that I was the only non-Palestinian that they pulled to do that interview. And because initially I thought they were going to cut my part out. Because after we took a break, his handler, I'm fairly certain his handler let me know that I couldn't go back up again. Because other people got to go back up again. I didn't. And I was frustrated with myself because that's not the topic that I really wanted to talk about. In fact, I think I stumbled initially by, instead of focusing on why he was trying to make October 7th, which is Operation Alaska Flood, the Nakba, he was trying to reframe that. That initial question was meant to reframe not just the starting point of it all, but to use catastrophe, the greatest catastrophe, right, to make that. The Nakba literally means catastrophe. That's what it translates to. So he was trying to use the Nakba and rebrand it for Zionist purposes. And I went in there and I said, I essentially tried to make it to where he was able to use the argument of qualitative and quantitative about the Nakba versus essentially the genocide of Palestinians after October 7th. And I lose that argument in the sense of the lives lost. I think I lose that argument. However, I should rephrase it in the sense of, hey, you're trying to do this proactively to rebrand the Nakba in order to vilify Hamas instead of the Zionists themselves. Right? That was his goal for that question. And I failed to properly address his goal. And so I hold myself accountable for that, saying, like, I don't think I did a good enough job at addressing why that question was being asked to begin with, which I think would have been better to expose his role in the Zionist project. I don't know if I'm explaining myself. I'm sorry.
No, I get it. I mean, I get it. I don't, I think it's, yeah, it's the tendencies to be a little more, I think, certainly I do it to be self-critical more. It more harshly than is warranted is really the point I'm trying to get to. But okay. I mean,
But am I wrong? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
it's not so much that I think so. I could agree with you, except that I think that, again, given the situation and the context, there I think needs to be appropriate limitations on what we could expect anyone to do in that moment. And I'm sitting there, you got the clock ticking down behind you. You got 20 people sitting around you. You got a whole studio crew of people in the room or whatever else is going on in the background. You can see in the video people are talking. So I don't even know to what extent you can hear them and pick up people talking in the background, which would be, for me, disturbing. And then, trying to keep yourself, the way I always think of it is, I'm trying to keep myself measured, trying to be bound. I'm not trying to lose my cool. Right. I'm not trying to, reach out across the table and smack this dude. Like I could see all these things playing out, and it would just be. So yeah, I guess looking back on it, okay, sure. I mean, maybe there is a more perfect answer or response, but so I'm not saying you're wrong. I just think it's, it's like, all right, well, but
yeah. I will say in terms of the talking in the background, when he was like trying to choose, and they were setting up, when it was his turn to choose who he spoke to again, I was chirping, like I was running my mouth in the sidelines, because by that point I knew I was not going back up. And he got so frustrated that he turned around and he yelled at me, well, us in that corner, and he said, "Can you guys stop? I can hear you speak, and it's really distracting, and I have a disability because of my ear, so it's really uncomfortable. Can you quiet down?" Like really aggressively. And I responded, "Well, who messed up your ear?" Because when he was 11 years old, and again, this is allegedly according to him, when he was 11 years old, the Zionists killed his best friend in a bombing attack that left him permanently disabled in one ear. And again, like I'm sharing that to show you the type of energy that I was bringing to that environment, where any little thing that I have an opportunity to point out who did this to you, who put your parents essentially in a concentration camp, who massacred your family members, and who left you permanently disabled that you are now serving, that you are now working for. So you could kind of hear the talk around you for sure.
Okay. And then when you said you didn't know you didn't know if, or when you initially you didn't know if or when you would get another chance to go up. How did you know you wouldn't get another chance, and what, like, how was that explained in advance? Or is it?
No, I mean, in advance, it's just all they tell you is like, hey, we want to give everybody like a fair chance of getting up there to speak. Right. And so they kind of let you know, like, maybe you won't get another chance to speak. But I felt that, especially as the recording was going on, that we had some of the best back and forth and energy. Other people did too. They had, but I just felt like if what you want is click and views, why wouldn't you put me back up there? And so I am making the assumption, risking making an ass out of myself, to say that his handler, she was there, basically let them know, like, Kate, because I wasn't even looked at after that. And I was shocked when they pulled me back to do that interview, because I'm like, other people got to speak more than I did. And again, I was the only non-Palestinian to get pulled. So I think that was the production team way of saying, well, okay, we won't bring him back up, but we are going to use him, again, even though we can't with your client. Again, complete assumption to me, but why would they pull me back to have that one-on-one?
So they didn't do that with everybody. Oh, so I assume that everybody got, it was like an out, an exit interview, and then they just clip what they wanted to clip. But you're saying that, so they, wow. All right.
Yeah, it was just a handful of us. And like I said, I wasn't really paying attention to the fact that, because it does matter in the sense that he brought up the fact that I wasn't Palestinian, right? And what was frustrating about that is, again, the appropriate answer to that should not have been, I'm Mexican, because, like, what the hell does that mean? What I should have said, and I say it quite often, is like, I view, if you want to call me mestizo, sure, whatever. But I think the more accurate term is like a bastard of colonization. I'll never know where I came from. I'll never know what language I may have or may not have spoken. I'll never know what my true ancestry is. And it's one of the reasons why I'm in opposition to Chicanismo, to indigenismo, because it's like you're just grasping at straws, and you're disrespecting other cultures in your desperate attempt to, find an identity that has been taken from us. It's unfortunate, it's tragic, and I want to make sure that that never happens to anyone else. In that situation, I should have said, like, I'm a bastard of colonization, and I don't want that to happen to Palestinians, because that's what he's advocating for. When you look at people like, especially liberals, who are talking about a one-state solution, right? Because that's, now they've all agreed, hey, don't take AIPAC money. Hey, oppose a two-state solution. It should be a one democratic state. They're still not in opposition to the Zionist project itself. They just want to see the Zionist entity go in the way of the U.S. because that's something they could normalize and rationalize. Hey, things aren't great. Sure, they massacred the indigenous people, but now everybody can vote. They can hold political office. Discrimination isn't technically on the books anymore. So, hey, that's progress to them. When in reality, what's going to happen, as Emma Vigeland from the Majority Report mentioned, she wants to see Palestinians being integrated into the larger Zionist, she said, what is now Israel. You're calling for the assimilation of the indigenous population into the settler colonial project, which is a form of genocide. We've seen it with the boarding schools. That is a form of genocide, where indigenous people weren't allowed to know their history, speak their language, practice their spiritual religions. That wasn't allowed. And so when we talk about a one-state solution without dismantling the Zionist project itself and the Zionist institutions, what are they really advocating for? The academic, the more acceptable method of genocide. That's what they want to see, because then they don't have to pretend to care.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to. I do want to come back at some point, and I need to think more about your point about the bastard of colonization piece, and what is to be done with identity. I mean, I like the point. It just comes crashing up against what I'm used to in terms of my own experience with the Black radical tradition here, and what I've understood it to advocate. And I know this has come up before, but I admit I gotta
I need to talk to Pancho, because I don't want him to think I'm dodging him. Your friend Pancho.
No, I'm trying to. I mean, I want to be I selfishly want to be in the room when the conversation
Let's
happens,
do it. Yeah.
live or not. I just want to, because but I mean, I feel your point. I feel your point. But yeah.
To be
So
clear,
anyway,
I'm speaking specifically about what we would consider Chicanos,
yeah, I
right?
get it.
I'm not telling anybody else. Just from what I've seen, what I've experienced, it's so exhausting. And I've said it before. It is Aslan is the Chicano Zionist project. But yeah, if you want to see some brown on brown violence, we could get Pancho on here and we could have a good time. I've argued with so many like old heads of like the Chicano movement, brown berets. Like I'm used to it. Like it's literally happened so many times. And one of the reasons I'm so critical of myself is because of that. Because these fools are living in the. I'm not saying this is Pancho, by the way. All respects to him. What I'm saying is the fools that I've argued with, man, they think they're all Zapata. They think they're fucking Pancho Villa. It makes no sense. And it's like, look, I studied it, I respect it, and I appreciate it, and you did open a lot of avenues, but you assimilated. Let's stop pretending that you were revolutionaries. And there's a reason why I struggle sometimes to find organizations to join over here in LA because, especially brown organizations, that's the heart of it. Chicanismo is the heart of it, and it can get unpleasant at times.
Yeah. Again, it's not an issue of disagreement. It's I just have to reconcile. And I know you're saying you're being specific to the Chicano community, but the point that you're getting at goes far beyond that community, because that's your whole point. If that community is a bastard of colonization, then how is, to the extent colonialism is experienced all over the world, then it's just a world of bastards, and to some extent. And then I do feel it, because initially my whole, it just was coming up in my class again this week. Like I have an aggressive hostility to all so-called nations that I see is all creations of European colonialism. So it's like anybody who starts waving their flag starts to make me uncomfortable on some level. But I also admit that I'm, particularly today, not prepared to offer up more substantive thoughts on it. But it is something I just want to acknowledge to you, that I appreciate the argument. Want to put a pin in that part of the discussion. Yeah. So anyway, but essentially we've covered what I wanted to ask you about in terms of this Jubilee experience, and I want to make sure and I know there was something you said you wanted to come back to, but if there's anything else that you would want to bring up, and if folks in the chat have any questions, please recycle them. I'll look again. I haven't been looking at the chat these last few minutes. But yeah, let me give you a chance to say anything else that you wanted to say about.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, sorry for the aside, but I mean,
no, I appreciate it.
Yeah. So he mentioned. So I brought up the fact that he works for the Atlantic Council.
Right.
So I mean, I think we all understand on the left immediately that disqualifies you as a legitimate person. In fact, that probably makes you more anything, some type of Fed. If we're being honest, whether official or unofficial, that's what it is. And he started this group called, or works with this group called, Realign for Palestine. And that is part of the Atlantic Council, right? He's had different projects throughout the years, I guess, to keep himself busy, to keep himself in the limelight in terms of like a so-called moderate Palestinian movement. He's advocated for and organized around opening an airport in Gaza, which is completely ridiculous, because who's going to regulate that? The Zionist entity, of course. If they don't have access to their own borders, quote unquote borders, or the borders imposed upon them in Gaza, what makes you think that an airport is possible in any like reality? But I think it's just done to, again, keep him in the spotlight, say that he's doing something, which is, man, the airport aspect of it is such a ridiculous notion that would ever fly. It's just preposterous, right? So,
but I'm sure the standard line applies because we hear this all the time. The Andy Young types in terms of black capitalists here. It'll bring jobs and tourism, and it'll make us a first class city and community in the world. The revenue, it'll open up schools for our children and healthcare clinics and all of that kind of stuff. I'm sure that's got to be part of the argued promotional campaign for it all. But yeah,
I mean, fundamentally, his main talking point is we have to show these Europeans that we're humans through our civil actions. That's his main talking point. It's like, hey, we have to prove our humanity to them. We have to show them that we're not savages, that we're not the brown horde, that we can actually have a society within the confines that they've created around us. So we have to show and present ourselves to the best possible light as they control every aspect of our lives to earn our freedom that way.
Circulate the Palestinian dollar. That's what, let's go. Let's get some Palestinian banks, and we need an app, a fintech Palestinian Wall Street app.
So to talk a little bit out of turn here, but I'll share this. I've had difficult conversations about that. The Palestinian diaspora, especially in the United States, very affluent. And what does that mean in terms of, I mean, we saw the Irish Americans literally like funding armed resistance, right? And so I think that's an interesting conversation to be had about. Obviously, the times are very different, but nonetheless, there's questions to be raised in terms of, I've been in a situation where we were at a protest and the individual I was with was very much embracing and celebrating the resistance. The people literally risking their lives, putting their lives on the lines in the front lines, right? And he was immediately tarred and feathered as a Fed. He was immediately, everything escalated to the point where we were essentially back to back. And in my mind, I'm like, already thinking, I'm like, this is going to get bad and we're going to have to like run out of here. For simply showing solidarity with the resistance, and debate after debate started ensuing about, hey, think about how we're going to be perceived. Think about how they're going to look at us. You're just helping them vilify us. Where at that very moment that you're thinking that way, you already lost. You already mentally conceded to colonization. The moment that you refuse to honor and celebrate and to uphold your freedom fighters, what are you doing? What is it for then? The people literally risking their lives, you're not willing to show solidarity with them because you want to appear as pleasant, as civil to the people colonizing you, when they're going to vilify you anyways. They're still going to call you terrorist. They're still going to call you every name in the book and accuse you of being Hamas anyways. So what is this point of walking on eggshells? What is this point of in reality, what you're doing is you're aiding and abetting the colonizers in their vilification of their people, of Hamas, of every Palestinian resistance movement and organization. You're aiding and abetting their vilification, which makes you, in that moment, an enemy of liberation.
Folks, the link to Deculturation's channels in the in the description. Please make sure you sign up and have a subscription if you haven't already, and enjoy yourself with these legendary lives. Unfortunately, my work schedule is just interfering. I haven't been able to catch a live in a minute. but they're a lot of fun, and enraging in the good kind of way, you know. But okay, let me see here. A couple questions here.
Just
Well,
one thing before we
no,
move
yeah,
on.
go ahead. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Also, one of his main talking points is that he was not allowed back into Gaza.
Mm,
This was in 2006. In 2006, he left as part of this movement from the Kennedy Lugar Youth Exchange, the Kennedy Lugar Youth Exchange program, where they were taking, I think he works with like Arab kids and bringing them to the United States as some type of like cultural exchange program. I think that's where he got recruited. That is my assumption, that he got recruited for these types of purposes. And when he tried to go back, they had just captured that IOF soldier. I'm blanking on his name right now, but that's what led to the exchange of and essentially what initiated from my understanding, the Hannibal Directive, where the Zionist entity was like, we're not going to do that again. If one of ours gets captured, we'll take everybody out, which is what happened on October 7th. The reason why they were so quick to bury all the evidence, literally burying the evidence, is because the type of damage that was inflicted upon the vehicles that had the hostages, quote unquote, I call them. Anyways, so could only be done by the Zionist entity. And so he blames Hamas for not being able to go back to Gaza, to his hometown, right? Instead of, again, the Zionist occupation that put his parents there to begin with. And it's funny how he views Gaza as his home and not where his parents were forced out of. You get what I'm saying? So he's willing to abandon things so easily, or at least he says he does, to push that narrative, right? Because if you're pushed out of from somewhere, for like, well, I don't want to give details, but there's a lot of Palestinians in the diaspora that may not be born in Palestine that are like, no, I'm Palestinian. Yeah, but technically we're born like, nope, I am Palestinian. We're not putting a dash. I'm not this and that. No, I am Palestinian, and that's it, right? Because that's the reality. That's what it is. But he's so willing, and he quite often uses, Gazans instead of Palestinians. Not always, but often he kind of like normalizes that type of language. And yeah, I think that's essentially it in terms of his background. Yeah, I mentioned his family being 33 of his family members exterminated. Just, I don't know how he goes to sleep at night. He had for sure a handler there that day. I will add this: he was, from that brief interaction, a couple hours, he gave off of like, this really shouldn't matter, but I need to say it, like a kind of a pervy kind of vibe. The way that he was in between takes, like when he came to the women in that space, for me it was very evident that like very creepy. I don't know. I don't want to get into the details of that because that's not fair to the women there. But as a man, if I want to take that that machista approach, I was like, oh, like yeah, that's like somebody's like creepy Theo right there. But yeah.
Go with your gut, as we say around here, like especially with that, because it's like, and to your point about, as a man, we know how men think and we know how men operate, and when we see men not putting up the appropriate self-control barriers, is sometimes, I think, pretty obvious, and it's just a matter of how do you behave in that moment. That is always really the only question. So but yeah, right on. So I did highlight this. I'm not sure. I appreciate that you all appreciate the time I'm giving. I'm not, if I missed something that this is specific to, please recycle that. I'm not, it's the honor and really the pleasure and the self-therapy is mine. So this is all good. Yeah, financial literacy for the Palestinians, that's all they need. Couple good courses. If we can get the Palestinian John Hope Bryant, they'll be all set. Let's see. My question, Jab and Carlos, could we continue this conversation on Patreon so those who are in the community can weigh in the conversation in real time? I don't have a problem with that in either case. I don't know, but I'm not sure why. So we would need. So the suggestion is that YouTube in real time is not the space for folks to weigh in. Is that what I'm understanding? Is that what you're getting from this? But in general, yes, I would have no problem in doing this on a live Patreon if folks felt that would give them more freedom to speak more freely. And if you ever want to host it on yours, I'm down to collaborate or just show up in the audience.
Well, I appreciate that. I think maybe they might feel more comfortable like actually speaking or jumping on as speakers. I'm not sure how that works on Patreon. I have a Patreon. I never promote it because, look, I'm still struggling with being comfortable with the financial aspect of this. I know that you had a mansion for a while, and now you're recording from a different room. But I remember when you had the mansion, and everyone was accusing you.
Yeah, we had to downgrade a little bit, and that's why I monetized the channel, because I got to get back to the mansion, and it's rough out here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, so let's ramp up the Patreon and get both of us in some McMansions out here, and but yeah, anytime folks want to do like I you know what, honestly, I didn't even think about that, and I haven't even thought about Patreon being used in that way for a more open conversation. So I that's a good idea, very good idea. Do you have any suggestions for critiques on Chicanismo and Aztlan, or maybe some of how you reached your own conclusions on that?
Yeah, so look, I'm first generation, and it's a little bit different for me too, because I don't really talk about my family, but just to be broad, very young parents, which is not unique. It's not unique, but they weren't raised in their parents, meaning my grandparents, state. They were raised along the border. And anybody that has that same experience can tell you that you very quickly start losing a lot of the traits and characteristics of quote unquote your heritage. And so I didn't grow up with a lot of the same cultural characteristics that a lot of first generation uh, individuals grew up with a lot, but not in terms of like, oh, I could tell you're from Durango, or I could tell you're from wherever, right? Because the connection wasn't there. Because if you end up in a border town, whatever, you start losing it almost immediately because it's so many different cultures mixed in there. And I will argue that some of the best food is along the border, though, because you do get a little bit of everything. But I'm just that's just might be my bias. The authentic stuff, obviously, you go where it's made. But if you want kind of like just the true melting pot of it all, the border will do it. So with that in mind, it was easier for me, I think, to not glorify, the a lot of the Mexican propaganda. And I will say Mexican propaganda because it's the Mexican state that has pushed a lot of these narratives. And so for me, it was kind of like, well, I wasn't really holding on to it in the same way as first generation people, my peers. So it was easier for me to let it go and to see it for the bullshit that it is. To put it plainly, in terms of who I recommend, we had a falling out. He straight up accused me of some BS. But what I'm most upset about is that he took his ball and he ran home. And I'm petty. I'm a hater, but I give props where it's due. Decolonized Buffalo had the best, absolutely the best criticisms of Chicanismo and Indigenismo. And I think he's done a disservice to everybody for taking his ball and running home. Because if you truly fucking care about this shit, you're going to leave out the information, the work that you put out for everyone to consume, even if you're done with it. You could step away from it. Hey, no judgment there. But the work that you put, if you truly think it's important, and I do believe that his work was important, I can't think of anybody else than Decolonized Buffalo. So now what I didn't want to take this upon myself because I've moved on from the Chicano stuff. And funny enough, FD is the one that kind of pointed it out to me. I normalized not seeing brown faces in these spaces. Like, where are we at? There's some podcasters, and even some of them have kind of just fallen off, unfortunately. And when I look at Black Liberation Media, when I look at the work that you have done, it's inspiring for a lot of reasons, but one of those is, why don't we have more brown people speaking up? Because there's a lot of great voices. And it's like, I don't think I'm up to their level of knowledge and intellect and the work that they put in. But if I could at least kind of wrangle some of them together, like, I feel like I did something. And again, that's my admiration for Black Liberation Media in general, because it's so damn vital and it's so important. And if I could, I've always joked around about, hey, if you're a good brown leftist, you copy what the black left has done. And so
Hey, so let's I saw a couple comments to this effect, so let's get caught up and shout out all of the.
Now listen, that's called my boy. You know nothing about that.
And then we had some beautiful petty, so salute.
People be like, why do you go out of your way to be petty? And I'd be like, who said it was out of my way? It's directly on my route every single time. Petty-luya.
And then one more, because, shout out to the black left and Pan-Africanism all day.
It's incredible. I love Rhonda.
That shit brightens my day every time. I don't know why it's so ridiculous, but I love it. All right, so listen, there was a couple more real quick. So this is funny. The petty bourgeois McMansions. We got to get them. Let's get that Patreon money up. And I like this one from Stephen Pelliser. Jamal Bryant is the Palestinian John Hope Bryant. So we need a Jamal or a Gamal. I always feel like Gamal. And this was funny. Jared, this is Deculturation's favorite guy, Jared Piker. That's funny. That's messed up. And then we did have a serious question, or Ricky raised this recycled question from my own processing interest. Would you argue that internal colonialism is akin to being a bastard of colonization? And I think so. I think that's what I'm saying. That as I'm listening over a few months of you making this point, that I do see the internal colonization of African people here in the Black American experience as being a bastardization. So when I hear you saying we should reject that from the Chicano perspective, that there should be a rejection of that colonially inspired identity, the way I'm hearing it is, I'm not entirely sure, but the way I'm hearing it is that as a call to reject, in a positive sense, what I've even wanted to encourage, that there be a rejection of this Black American claim and a recognition of the colonial bastardness, and then to say, and that's why what I've always liked about the new African claim, that argument. So I don't know if that's more of what you're arguing in the context of Chicanismo, if I'm even saying that part correctly, or not, but that's where that is. So that is, and then I even kind of like, and then I even started thinking of the documentary title, "Bastards of the Party," and that if I remember correctly, the origins of the Crips and Bloods street organizations, but that the idea that we're bastards of. And then there's some personal things I have to admit. I'm going through my little midlife crisis thing, this little post midlife, I should say, crisis I'm going through. The bastards of colonization. Like, I almost want to get a tattoo now, like some shit, get a uniform of some kind. So yeah. Anyway, that's but to Ricky's question here, that is what I think I'm thinking, and then but I need to think more about it. But yeah, and go ahead. Yeah.
First off, Ricky, you're man, like, just so fucking awesome. So yeah, Ricky's somebody who always happy to see on anything really on Black Liberation Media. So thank you for all the work that she does, because I know she's doing the organizing. So like all credit and respect to them. So yeah, Ricky, thank you for all you do. You helped me right now realize why I've gotten pushback in terms of that phrase, bastards of colonizations, to kind of replace Chicano, to replace mestizo. Because even though I actually like the word mestizo, it sounds cool. I'm assuming it's the Z, but it's embracing a colonial caste system, and it should be viewed as, despite the selling out that the majority of mestizos did, and aligning with the caste system, embracing it and benefiting from it, it should realistically be viewed as any other negative, derogatory caste label, because that's what it is. So I don't want to see us kind of reclaim it, even though I do think it sounds cool. But now you're helping me see why some people might have gotten offended when I say bastards of colonization. And I'm assuming here that we can relate on this, on that personal note. Homie, I am a bastard. What are you gonna do about it? you know?
Well, because my attitude has always been kind of like, why are you, y'all did this. Like, I just got here. You know what I mean? Like, I just showed up into this, you had already set up the world as it is and created these categories. And then the relationship of my particular parents and all of that. Like, I didn't have anything to do with that shit. And then, it's like, but here we are. And all of a sudden we're supposed to figure it all out perfectly and respond to it all perfectly. With a level of clarity, despite all of the ongoing constant efforts to make sure we are as confused and unclear as can be. So, and then I kind of also been that type of person. It's like, that's why Redman's I Be That is like my anthem. It's always been, ever since that song, you're probably too young for this, but ever since that song came out, Redman was like, I was like, that's me. They like, when I be rolling through the streets, they be like, fuck you. And I'd be like, I be that. And I'd be like, fuck you, be that, I be that. All of the things. So anyway, I kind of like the approach, and I like the critique it encourages, even as I do, and I get it. Like I think at least I could see why, any group, but in this case, Mexicans, Chicanos would say, or whoever would say, nah, man, I want to embrace this identity. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. And then I don't know. It's almost like the whole N-word controversy. It's like, is it a reclamation and a reclaiming of empowerment and all this kind of stuff? And I'm always, So I just like what you're encouraging in terms of a thought process there, and a politicization of all of it. So anyway,
you know what's funny is that alongside settler realism. Settler realism came about, which I want to actually like. I never thought about writing a book, but I'm like, oh, I need to write something about settler realism, and at the very least, to one up Mark Fisher, which any white academic I want to one up. But
let the hate flow through you. That was one of my old radio drops. Let it go. It will inspire you. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's it. My middle name must be He Ain't Shit, because every time I'm in the car, they be like, He Ain't Shit. I be that. I mean, that's my middle name. I'm like, yes.
That's hilarious. You just gave me like an anthem to look up. That's hilarious.
Oh no, please. I don't vouch for any of his personal politics, particularly these days. Redman has shifted. Some of my generation kind of can't stay in the lane, but as an MC, and that track has always resonated with me. That's it. He ain't shit. That's right. All right, whatever. I ain't shit. That's it. Let's go. Now what? Or like my godfather says, who's short. He says, when people say, well, his line is, if I was tall, what would you say? Like, then what would you say? Like, now what? So yeah, I'm short. Whatever. If I was tall, like what is the anyway, go ahead. Keep going.
No. Yeah. I lost track of what I was saying, to be
My
honest.
bad. My bad.
No, we're all good. Just to say that, like,
You're gonna write
in
a
terms
book
of like,
about settler
oh
realism.
yeah, so definitely want to do that at some point. But that came about because I was trying to get Sam Cedar to understand, why he's against decolonization, and to really, in a way that he would understand it, because Michael Brooks loved Mark Fisher. All these people love capitalist realism, which I think that's a pamphlet and it's super overrated. That's just my opinion. It's a pamphlet and it's overrated. I don't know what to tell you, but it's just like Michael Brooks, overrated white dude. That's why I call him like the great white savior saint. He died, he accomplished nothing, and people glorify him. I don't understand it. This is your revolutionary? Cool. He ain't mine. But the other aspect of it, the reason I came up with bastards of colonization was because I was trying to find a collective slur for brown people out throughout Latin America, so-called Latin America. And I would talk, because I have, friends from all different types of backgrounds of, Latin America. And they're like, no, that doesn't work because that's only specific for this group. No, that doesn't work because that's only specific in this coast. And so I'm like, there's not a collective slur that isn't almost automatically going to put you on the label of Mexican, because that's all, white Americans recognize for decades, with random points of looking at El Salvador in different ways, Central America's in different angles. And I'm like, oh, well, bastards never really seems like a slur, but it is supposed to be an insult. Like, that's what it's supposed to be, right? It hasn't had the transformation of like cuckold that the right took on, but like cuckold is a very specific insult, I believe, from Shakespeare, right? Where you're raising another man's son.
Does it come from Shakespeare? Probably, but I don't remember. That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah, but my point being is, I always tell people, like, I don't think I'm providing some type of insight or profound knowledge. I'm not here to illuminate any realities or hidden truths. Like, I'm sharing this to tell you, like, I find my ways into these, what I find to be the most, the golden nuggets that I can actually provide through the dumbest possible process, debating with the liberal Zionists and trying to find a collective slur for the brown community. And so, anywho, I just want to say that to demonstrate how unserious I can be and wind up in some serious situations. Because now, comparing bastards colonizations to like New African, which I remember the first time I heard New African, I was like, oh, like that's so genius. It works perfectly, and it rejects, the Americanization of it all, the colonialism. It acknowledges the connection while not trying to supplant Africans, because we've seen that kind of like dynamic of going back and contributing to colonization, like, again, from my limited understanding. So I've always loved the term New African, but we don't, what do we can say, new Indian, like, that makes no sense. New Native, that makes no sense. So they're not one to one, and they shouldn't be, because they're not. But you have me questioning the bastard thing now, in terms of like, yeah, I can finally understand why it can be offensive. So thank you for that.
Yeah, but okay, that wasn't my goal. My goal is to encourage it, is because because that's sort of the point. Bastard is supposed to be a negative. It does carry a negative connotation, at least as I've understood it in this country, and it's meant to signify that you are without accepted parentage, and and then even to learn a little bit more about the Panamanian context, that if the man doesn't show up and sign, then you don't have a family. And it doesn't matter that you're sitting there with your mother and the child, like, just being born, or like, you don't have a name, you don't have an accepted, acknowledged reality. So it's like it has all of this patriarchal and all kinds of stuff, I think, attached to it as a connotation, but it does have it. But then my point is, if that's the situation, for instance, that I'm born in, then all right, then, like, then I'll be that. And then, and then for me, it's, well, what does that then mean? How do we recreate its meaning? How do we make it more militant in its meaning? And then also, what I do appreciate, as I interpret your approach with this, and just in general, is that if you've thrown on me this negative label and experience, I want to embrace it in a way that makes you uncomfortable, and then use that as a pathway to destroy the whole thing, to break that, everybody's, then everything must. So you talk about take your ball and go home with old boy. I'm like, I have a version of that. Like I take the ball, like they ain't no, if then ain't no more court. Then there's no more,
Yep.
no more court. If I can't
Yep.
play, or if I'm playing in a certain way that you've imposed on me, then nobody can play. Then ain't no game no more. That's always my. So, it's not always practical and leading to the best results, but it is. So, listen. So I do need to start to wrap up, unfortunately, for now. But was there something? But I know there was something else with the Navy thing you wanted to get to, or something. Or was there something? What was this? What was? I can't remember now. What was the whole?
Yeah, the Grand Platinum thing.
Yeah, and what's
we could do just.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm not even sure I got the whole. I'm not even sure what the thing is.
Yeah, so this is what I've been working on. Essentially, Grand Platinum is running in Maine to be a senator.
Yeah.
And the issue is, this fool came out ahead of the Oppo research to reveal that he had a Totenkopf tattoo, which is the death skull that the SS would wear. And that's a real American there. All right, that's a real American, brother. And so he had it on his chest for basically 18 years, I think, over a decade. And he got it in Croatia while, I don't know what they call it, but like downtime, I guess, or like between harbors. I don't know what they call it. But him and a bunch of other drunken Marines got that similar tattoos. And he claims that he did not know what it meant until the Oppo research, where they were trying to accuse him of having a white supremacist symbol tattooed. Now, his story makes absolutely no sense because he has a long Reddit history. And in one of those, he is responding to a Reddit post about military members, I forget from what military, having Nazi symbolism. And one of those things is a Totenkopf. And he commented under the original comment addressing the Totenkopf. So there is absolutely no way that he did not know what it is. He holds himself as a history buff, so much so that he mentioned in a comment in a Reddit post asking what wars would you participate in if you could go back in time. And he gave a long list, including Vietnam, Haiti, made the distinctions between the wars in El Salvador in the 1920s and the 80s, wanted to be part of both. Like the amount of military history knowledge that he has, there is no way he did not know what I think is the third most known popular Nazi tattoo. The first one is the swastika, no question. That's the OG. That's the top one. The second one would be the two thunderbolts, the SS. And I think the third one is the Totenkopf, because it was literally on the hats of the SS. There's no excuse. And I've been documenting and seeing all these white leftists, from Hassan Piker to Sam Cedar, Cal Kalinske, Crystal Ball, Ryan Grimm, Matt Stoller. I could go on and on. The entire white left, the boar left that somebody mentioned in my chat once, all of them are literally circling the wagons to protect Grand Platinum. And we're like 8 months away from the actual election in Maine. It gives you plenty of time to find somebody else.
And this is because they want to defend him because he's a Democrat. And what is he taking some other acceptable progressive or liberal positions that they
according according to them, he is just running as a Democrat, but they think that he actually speaks to working class Americans. Mind you, Maine is white as hell. All his rallies are super white because that's what Maine is, but they feel like he is speaking to the average American voter, and that this is a good term for the Democratic Party to embrace more of a populist approach. A populist approach.
So I don't want to be confused with any of them, but I will say, to put it out there, that on the one, my limited experience in the enlisted ranks of the Navy and around some Marines, it's hard for me to underestimate the ignorance of a lot of the people in there. So when someone initially tells me I didn't know what the tattoo meant, I, initially, before any other, I could be like, maybe, because Marines in particular are not bright. Um, but but that said, after all that said, like, you're still at the same time, I also am aware of how racist and overtly racist they all are. So it's like it's a 6-7 meme between ignorance, the overall stupidity of a lot of these folks, and the racism. But no, that's wild. But that's the liberals. So between between him and Mamdani, we're going to be saved.
So I'm glad that you apparently, and I don't want to like not in a rude way, that you're unaware of this, right? Because you brought up a great point here. Hey, these are jarheads or whatever they call themselves, whatever. They're not the most intelligent people. And I think that is a fair, like excuse or whatever you want to call it, for him. The problem is, even if we remove the Nazi connection to the death skull, even if we remove it, his reasoning for getting it, it's still some white supremacist pro-colonization reason, pro-imperialist reason. He got it to honor his service as a machine gunner in Afghanistan. So even if we remove all the Nazi stuff, at the end of the day, the white left is still defending a U.S. Marine getting a tattoo of a death skull to honor his war crimes in Afghanistan.
And his desire to have been in every single other war crime, rampant invasion this country has been involved in.
Specifically small wars. He details how small wars are fun. It's the large wars where it's like real nations power. I think call them like superpowers against superpowers that take the fun away from it, that are more brutal. And for me, that revealed this kind of you want to say a bully mindset, but for me, it's like a colonizer mindset of like, oh no, it's fun when you're the big dog. It's fun when you got all the weapons and the machinery to aid in massacring this, the smaller, quote unquote, weaker or perceived to be weaker party, right? So, and again, now he claims that he's against all that he's not in support of these colonial wars, these imperialist wars, that he only saw himself as a soldier. Now it's different. If you read his actual agenda, his platform, he literally talks about raising wages for servicemen to help the low recruitment. He literally talks about closing the shipping, the ship gap between the US and China. There is no reason to want to close that gap unless you're preparing for World War III. And there's no reason for you to be concerned about low recruitment unless you want to make sure that we have people to throw into the meat grinder. So even he's not anti-war. He just wants to like make sure that the wars we go towards are managed properly financially, and that we can actually achieve our goals.
No, we heard that bullshit with Obama when he said, I'm only for the good, I'm only against the bad wars, or I'm only for the good, whatever the fuck he was saying. So it's like another, they love that. To your point, and one of my favorite things about your channel is this focus on the white liberals. I just love it. It's just but they love that. They love that. They love that stuff of no. He's against the bad wars, so we don't have to worry about his bloodlust and his fantasy for having been in every single war. To your point, the small imperial wars.
Yeah, I know we got to wrap up, but I will say the reason why it's taking me even longer than normal to put out this video is they're still digging themselves deeper. So literally yesterday, Breaking Points, which is with Ryan Graham, Crystal Ball, Sagar, who's an Indian white supremacist, and the day before that, The Lever, who asked some really good questions, but offered no pushback So I think it was just done to say that he answered hard questions. But if you're not getting pushback, then it's irrelevant how hard the question is if you're allowed to ramble or evade answering. But they just put out interviews with him. So now I got to add that to it because he's making it worse. Like, he's offended that people are claiming that he worked for Blackwater. When he, after serving in Afghanistan as a Marine, he would take year-long breaks, and then he went back, but the Marines weren't allowing sleeve tattoos anymore. So instead of saying, "Oh, okay, I'm done with my military career," he's like, "I'm gonna go join the army and also be in the front lines." And after joining the army and going to first it was Iraq, then it was Afghanistan. My apologies. That's what he got the tattoo for Iraq. After leaving the army, 7-year hiatus, goes back and as a military contractor, a private military contractor for the State Department. And he's saying, "Well, I never worked for Blackwater." Well, no, he worked for the company that eventually absorbed all the smaller contract companies. And he's actually taking a weird approach of saying that this is a problem, that the monopolization of the private military contractor should be addressed, because he's upset that he's being labeled as working for Blackwater when he didn't work for Blackwater, because Blackwater didn't exist when he finally became a mercenary. And so you see all these mental gymnastics that the white left is embracing and pushing to defend this war criminal. And the excuse is, "Oh, he was only there for 6 months as a mercenary, and then he was disgusted with everything and left." That was the initial narrative. After the interview with Breaking Points a day ago, he went into detail that all he was doing was basically being a chauffeur and making sure that the route was safe, and that most of his time was spent playing video games. And I'm like, well, if most of your time was spent playing video games, how was it that you were so disgusted that you left after 6 months? What actually happened, this is my speculation, is that he was short on money, not to put food on the table, but short on money, did 6 months of military mercenary work, came back and started his own business. He started an oyster farming business. I'm petty. I'm so annoying. I was looking for the prices on my live stream of the type of boats used for oyster farming in Maine specifically. And I'm like looking through everything, and a top of a line one is going to run you at least like $50K. So I think he went, cashed in. I'm going to do 6 months, get the money that I need to start my own business, and came back. And my bigger question is, how long before the white left, the Hassan Pikers, the Sam Cedars, the Crystal Balls, how long before they start excusing why people join ICE? Why did people join ICE? Oh, well, they needed the money.
And they only did it for 6 months.
Exactly. How long before they start excusing that? And the normalization and the way that they're liberals. They rebrand as populists. They rebrand as dem socks. They're liberals. They just rebrand. That's all they can do is play with language. How long, before they start? They're normalizing a Nazi tattoo. What's next? What's next? And so we need to start. We were warned time after time. For decades, we've been warned about them. And we still pretend that they're not white supremacists. We still pretend that we can trust them. We still pretend that they will be there for us. And I'm truly getting like frightened and scared if we continue to leave them unchallenged, to allow them to be the voices of a broader left movement, because what will be normalized will be our death and our destruction, because they already normalized the genocide of Palestinians. They already told you to vote for Harris. I knew when that red line was crossed, when genocide was no longer a red line, we're all for grabs now. They're willing to sacrifice all of us for their safety and their comfort and their national socialism, which is what Bernie brought us.
James is on point here. Again, rest in Uhuru to Asada. But she, I think every serious thinker and activist that we would point to, for the most part, has a section in their work about the white liberal. Uh, so it seems pretty consistent to me, from my experience and my with these folks' lives, and this is why, and I think you're right to point that out. Um, and and if my unfortunate reading of Kamala Harris's book 107 Days is correct, they're gonna have her to talk about again. And then I just happened to be in Annapolis the other day, and I saw Maryland's Governor Wes Moore walking with his entourage, and the way he was engaging people, I was like, damn. They're going to put. I was reminded again. They're going to be put. So it might be, Kamala versus Wes for who is going to bring us out of this Trump morass. And so I again, that's why I appreciate what the criticism you bring and the way you do it. So. Yeah, he was strutting through. He was strutting through with his little team, looking like. And the thought I had watching him was he wants to be president. He's loving this. He seemed very happy. I don't know.
Yeah, we were looking.
Yeah,
we
go
were
ahead.
looking at Jasmine Crockett last time, and I was kind of blown away. I didn't know that she was out of Texas, and I was like, I'm shocked that they didn't try to, push her more, especially as Beyonce's been on this like rebranding tour of Americana and all this. Also being like from Texas, Crockett isn't from Texas, but she's working out of there. So, that's we have to start looking at who the next brown and black faces are going to be to normalize atrocities. Literally, Alejandra Ocasio-Cortez, I believe earlier this month, was with Bernie Sanders on a CNN town hall, smiling up while Bernie is still saying that Israel had the right to defend itself. And it's like, it's never, and you need your I gotta be respectful, your Boricua out there next to you to deflect the criticism, to normalize you saying that Israel had the right to defend itself. So the compradors, I think we need to start like a betting pool, like a public betting pool of who's going to be the next the next face.
I like
that'll
that.
be fun.
I think we should do that. I think and a tier list I see is popular on these YouTube streets. A tier list of the compradors.
Comprador tier list. I'm down.
I think that would be dope. I'm happy to contribute. Put in my 2 cents and help we could start taking votes and start getting people to help rank. Unfortunately, I do think we have to find some ways to have a little bit of fun with this because it's yeah.
Well, at the end of the year, I'm trying to do the best mediocre white award at the end of the year. So
I love it. I was just talking with my Hate Awards crew. We haven't, we've never found a successful leap from radio to YouTube with the Hate Awards. So the whole concept, what's the name of the award you want? What is it?
It's gonna be like the most mediocre white award.
The most mediocre white award. Oh my goodness, that's a good one.
MMWA.
So that and a comprador tier list is a comprador DraftKings. Yo. And with all these scandals going on, this is perfect. That's all the gambling scandals. That's hey, keep me in the loop. I'm down to support that. And Dr. Hate is still out here. Dr. Hate, I was supposed to see Dr. Hate Saturday night but I had a little mishap. So I missed that opportunity. Dr. Hate is still out here hating as hard as ever. And but the double O African community is sometimes difficult to keep up with. They're double O for a reason. They stay incognito for a reason. But he's out there. We'll have to. But that's fine. I think we need to pass this on to younger generations of haters, and I think Carlos, is picking up the mantle here perfectly. And the mediocre white award is a great. So is this going to be like a New Year's type of? That's what's
Yeah,
up.
I think definitely. Yeah, we need to have a little celebration. I think they deserve their respect and like just the praise that they've worked hard for.
They do work hard. I think that's well, we at Black Liberation Media got in some trouble at one point for making reference to this. So we won't, yep, got us in some trouble. We don't advocate it. We were just acknowledging that but all right, listen, Carlos, this has been great. Thank you very much. Again, please keep up the good work. And when is the next marathon stream scheduled? Do you have
So
it
I
scheduled?
I stream on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays at Deculturation. I'm currently working on, I'm playing with the title, but it's gonna be like Ram Plattner exposes the white left, or unhoods, unmasked,
Unhoods.
unhoods, right? Yeah, this is better. Yeah, we'll do that. All right, we'll do unhoods.
That's my my little. I like it.
Well, it goes with the thumbnail too, because another tidbit about him is that he was not a guard in, but he was guarding Abu Ghraib. Allegedly 2 years after all the complaints. But I'm like, well, if you're guarding a former torture chamber, you're guarding a torture chamber.
Nah, they brought him in to clean it up. He was the post-torture crew.
There you go.
Remember, he's a good guy.
Yeah. So yeah, that'll be out. I'm literally gonna start working on that some more after this, and hopefully I can have that out next week. But like I said, the problem is that they continue to do interviews with him, and his stories change just a little bit to where it highlights some contradictions. That it's going to be a long one, like 45 minutes, trying to edit things down. They're just digging their own graves further and further. And the reason why I think this is important, all the petty and hater stuff aside, is nobody's documenting their allegiance to white supremacy, their normalization to embracing this outward liberal fascism, or whatever rebrand they're going to add to it. I mean, right now it's what populism is a big thing, left-wing populism. It's just ridiculous. But yeah, Deculturation, check it out. Support the channel if you can. If you just want to hear somebody talk shit about white people, I'm here for you.
And who wouldn't want that? Who doesn't want that? Listen, man, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. I appreciate it, and I look forward to the next Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday streams, and this forthcoming video. And again, folks, the link to Carlos's Surrounded Jubilee and his channel are in the show description. And we'll talk to you soon. Peace, because I know you're willing to fight for it. So peace. Like Fred Hampton said. So, all right, thank you very much, my man. Peace. All right, everybody, listen, please come back at 4:00 Eastern time, if at all possible, where we have the football roundtable crew coming through, world football, politics, all real footballs around, all of that good stuff. 4:00 Eastern, a couple hours from now, enough time to stretch, catch up on something maybe more important and serious, because that although we are going to get into some serious stuff, but and come on back. Thank you all very much who were able to be here live. Appreciate you. And to all those who will see and hear this later, thank you and peace to you as well. And like, share, subscribe, put this in your socials, support the Patreon. All the links are in the show description. Make sure you are signed up over there as well at Black Liberation Media and caught up on all the work happening there. Make sure you got the bell rung, all of those things. And as always, well, first,
it's incredible. I love Rhonda.
And then peace, only if you're willing to fight for it, like Fred Hampton used to say. And I will catch you next time here at.
And what do you sacrifice?
Calm, kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago for which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, that set me on a path from which there's no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I look down, there's no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy and defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything, 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 everything.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.
It's incredible. I love Rhonda.